Well, a very, very happy Thursday, and welcome to another episode of the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin. Today is December 18th of 2025, and on today's episode, we are going to get you guys ready for Week 16, as there are teams out there and heading into this week that are looking to clinch a division, looking to or clinch a playoff berth, looking to clinch a division, looking to clinch a number one seed in their conference. Then there's teams that are eliminated or facing elimination. And it's still important to focus on the eliminated games because there are different reasons that they are fighting for in the final 3 weeks of the season, whether that is I'm trying to get the number one seed for the 2026 draft, whether that is just I want to finish off the season strong, which I feel most teams, if not all the teams, value a win every game, no matter where they are at in the standings. It also provides some opportunities for teams to play devil's advocate to those that are trying to gain themselves a playoff berth. So, unfortunately, the Cincinnati Bengals are not, their opponents over the next 3 weeks do not have playoff implications. All three of them are eliminated from the postseason. But I wouldn't go as far to say as far as these three games are pointless for the Bengals. And we'll talk about it in depth. And I talked about it yesterday on this podcast that, you know, between the Bengals and Miami, there are some things that we are seeing happen. And it's going to be one of the conversations we have in depth because I have it pulled up. There's a little bit more information provided about Tua Tagovailoa and how he is going to be benched, and Quinn Ewers is going to be the starting quarterback for the Dolphins this Sunday at Hard Rock Stadium against the Bengals. And so we'll get into a deep dive into that as well. I'll talk about NFL teams and the scenarios that we are facing heading into Week 16, about teams who could clinch a division, who could clinch a playoff berth, teams facing elimination, possibly even seeding. So that's always fun. I'm going to also provide the link where I got that source from. I want you guys to know. So there's a lot of information, and it's a lot of just at willpower that could kind of become boring or very confusing easily when describing this. So there will be a link. It's from the CBS Sports website. And I encourage you guys, if you guys are one of those people who look at these scenarios and want to have an understanding, maybe you're trying to find a football game to watch, to maybe, root for, heading into the season. I mean, look, here's a good example. Baltimore Ravens, Pittsburgh Steelers. They're both teams that are equalized in the standings, right, of the AFC North. Pittsburgh is 8-6. Ravens are 7-7. And they're both fighting for a division title. Now, can the Ravens win? Absolutely. But what do they have to do in order to get to that victory? And you kind of got to know what's at stake for the Ravens. And that means they kind of have to win out in a hindsight sense, as well as beating the Steelers in the final game of the season. And so, for example, Pittsburgh is 3-1 divisional games. They think they play the Browns next week, and then they will finish off the season against the Ravens in Pittsburgh. The Ravens are 3-2, and their final division game is in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. So for Baltimore, you would want to not only win that game, and we're just playing theoretical, hypothetical scenarios. So if Pittsburgh, let's say, beats Cleveland, their division record is 4-1. They would have the same record as the Ravens heading into the final game of the season. Pittsburgh currently has the leverage against Baltimore as they beat them a couple weeks ago. So not only Baltimore would have to win the game against the Steelers to get back to equal 500 football with the Steelers, but they would have to beat them and have a 4-2 record. It will match the 4-2 record unless the Browns could beat the Steelers next week. And they would also need Pittsburgh to lose a game, whether it's this week against the Lions or next week against, well, it could be next week against the Browns. If the Steelers lose against the Browns next week and the Ravens could win out, they would have a better division record than. See, it's already confusing. If Pittsburgh, their options are win out and win the division. If, let's say, they lose this week against the Detroit Lions, then they would have to win against Cleveland. They would need Baltimore to lose, for one, or they will need to at least beat Cleveland or beat the second game against the Ravens. If the Steelers lose, but then win against Cleveland, all they need to do is then they kind of secure that spot, because all they need to do is Baltimore needs to lose a game, right? So it's a scenario-based purpose, and it's kind of, it could get very tricky to understand in explanations. That's why we're going to also provide you the link, because the link gives you the scenarios per team, and I could kind of give you a little baseline of what we're reading off of here. So, an episode almost did not take place today. I'll tell you why. I went out this morning and I had to get some things for dinner. The wife's having a potluck at work tomorrow, wanted to get some, get the stuff for their potluck, and got home, finished our very last bit of Christmas shop, and all that stuff came in. So I had to start, working on putting together, finish wrapping the presents. We have a Christmas party with friends coming over the weekend. So we are kind of tying up those loose ends, making sure all those presents are wrapped, ready to go. Well, so I get all that stuff done. And then I'm also like, all right, Thursday, I got a couple more games on, Sunday, Monday night. I need to get, played. I got to get Thursday night football game imported, from putting it back together in my editing software. And so I had to get that done. That takes a couple hours to process. And now I have to go back and upload it, at the time of this recording. And that'll be there for you tonight. And then I got to start on the next video, because, football carries over into the weekend. We have Saturday, Sunday, 2 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday, a game on Monday. And then we got to do it all again next week as it's Christmas week. So then I was like, all right, you know what? I got everything done. I'm going to sit down and record. And then I come across the Cody Rhodes interview with John Cena, who, this is not a promotional ad when I talk about this, but if you are, I would recommend wrestling fans to watch this interview, because this is the first interview with John Cena post his retirement. So I'm glad that all this came out and we're getting a chance to watch it. And I was watching, and I'm just so captivated by learning and just listening to. As a podcaster myself, as someone who is trying to grow, maybe you're seeing the recent stuff I've posted on social media. I'm trying to be more interactive. I'm trying to get some more shorts out there. I'm trying to get video out there. Other than being a one-trick pony and other than being very one-dimensional when it comes down to posting my content, I am trying. It's a low budget, low quality equipment right now, as I hope to build, and as I, with the support of you, the listeners and the audience and the subscribers and the followers, I hope to build and grow within this field to help improve not only myself, but you guys, to give you guys the quality you guys deserve. And so I'm learning new things. It's territory that I'm not familiar with. I'm very skeptic about. I'm very cautious proceeding. Don't ask me why, because I don't know where to begin. I'll be honest with you. I still get scared to this day. To this day, I've been podcasting, broadcasting, whatever you want to consider it. I've been doing it for the past 3 years. I've learned so much. I've done lives. I've done interviews. Yet I still get nervous. I don't know about you, but I get excited. There's a adrenaline rush that I get excited for, to say here, if I know, to know the content, to know what I want to talk about, to have those opinions and to share them with you, I get excited about. So, but I almost didn't do an episode because I was watching the video and I was learning so much. So I had to put that on pause. I'm going to watch it. I want to kind of speak of it, hopefully tomorrow. That's my goal. Because I don't have any ideas how to get you guys into the weekend, tomorrow's episode, but we will come to our senses here and get you into the weekend. So that's why it's kind of, we almost didn't have an episode today, but we are going to get one in today and tomorrow, and we're going to follow through our schedule. I didn't touch base with this yesterday, so I want to touch base with this now. Our schedule. It's the holiday seasons. I'm sure just like everyone else, people want to spend time with their loved ones, and I know I got a family that I want to spend time with this holiday season. That's what I intend to do, and I encourage you guys to do so as well. For those who listen to our podcast online, on a mobile app, on our social media platforms, we are going to have our podcast Monday through Friday, regular schedule for the rest of this week. Next week, it's going to be Monday and Tuesday. And then the following week, it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, heading into the new year. We will resume our daily podcast schedule time platform, 7 o'clock, Monday through Friday, beginning January 5th. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be other content posted. I'm going to try to stay as active as I can on social media, posting news, posting conversations, and this and that. But it's still a primary time for spending with family. If you guys are watching us on our YouTube station, the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel, we will still be publishing AI content or in-game content from the NFL Madden 26 video game. And that season should still be resuming as scheduled. So I know there's games on Christmas. There's games Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That is still scheduled as normal. It is going to be the time that I have with you guys heading into these episodes. The only other time that I will not have an episode posted, despite something of an emergency stance, which I should be more communicating on with our channel, and I'm working on that, is if I'm sick and if there's snow days, especially for kids. So if you live in a county in the area and you're like, there's snow that comes in the night before and school are closed, more likely I'm not going to get an episode in. There is a time and there's a place that I record episodes. And so I'm just trying to get you guys, I want you guys to understand the process. I don't want you guys to miss a single episode. I don't want you guys to think I'm going to go on a hiatus. There's plenty to talk about, and I got all these conversations that I want to spill out with you and keep up to date with the news. But I want you to understand. So the holiday season, it will be posted in the description below. Make sure you get to that. I apologize for those who are working or like to listen to the show, especially throughout the holidays. But we will be back as soon as possible. I am uncertain right now. It's highly likely that I will do any pre-recordings for post beyond the holidays. I guess we will see. Right now, it's an unlikable chance. So I got that covered. I wanted to cover that. If you guys are wanting to be a part of the show, and I want you to be a part of the show, I really do. Please, in the comments, hook me up on social media as I try to become more active on Facebook and on TikTok. I'm trying to expand. I'm stepping outside my comfort zone, but all for a good cause. Reach out to me. Let's have these conversations. I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to learn. I want to be able to gain something from our conversation. So teach me about something. I'm inviting. If you want to be a guest on our show, reach out to me. You have our Facebook accounts. You have our social media accounts. Just reach out and get in contact with me, and we will talk and have these sports conversations with you. So, with that being said, on our podcast episode, we are talking about the Week 16 previews. I will go over scenarios for each team. I will give you heading into Week 16 standings and schedules for matchups as some things have been turned around. There is still a conversation that I think needs to be said. So I want to kind of get into the Bengals and Dolphins game. Okay. So, and this is all going to be related, so be patient with me. Joe Burrow last week came on to their weekly press conference and kind of gave us some signals indicating that he's not happy, he's not having fun, and he's unsure about the future, not only of his career, but the future of him playing in Cincinnati. And it shocked the nation, the sports nation. And a lot of us took those little sayings, took it for what it was worth, and we've tried to piece some puzzles together and descript what he was trying to say. And to that, it is understandable for a guy who's been in the league for 6 years, been injured, and on the sideline for half of that time. When he's on the field, he is at all ends in danger zone because we lack the credibility from the offensive line. And then the effort that he puts in, there is a lack of reciprocation from the defense. It's a common issue that the Bengals have had for the past several decades. So there was comparisons that with Joe Burrow being tied to Andrew Luck in his situation, to Carson Palmer. And we're here as a Bengals nation, no matter what we do, what happens, whether he decides down the road he wants to be on a different program and join a different organization, I feel as long as it's not within the AFC North, I will support him and I will be a lifelong fan of Joe Burrow. I saw a post from Lance McAllister earlier today, actually right before this podcast, and he was talking about faith and the amount of faith that that Cincinnati nation and fan base has towards the Cincinnati Bengals or towards the Cincinnati Reds. And I think he makes a really good point, and I think it has to be looked directly in the mirror As a fan, how much faith do you have of this team to improve this offseason to give the Bengals a fighting chance to get back to the postseason? Because the Bengals aren't fighting. They missed the postseason for the past 3 years. We're not fighting to win a Super Bowl. We're fighting just to get back to the postseason, a playoff, a wild card round. The Reds have been climbing and fighting just to break 500 baseball. And they were fighting to maintain and possibly win a division, if not advancing from the wild card series to the divisional series. But we, as a fan, are putting faith in ownership and management and coaches that they will make the right decisions for our ball club to put us in that predicament. And so Joe Burrow had a press conference heading into yesterday. And it was there was a similar concept from last week's statements, but it kind of came in a different light. Now, Joe Burrow, he's only played in 5 games. His pass completion rating is 60.5%. He's thrown for 959 yards with 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, averaging about 6 yards a carry. In the season that he had to miss because turf toe injury, that will take the fun out of things. When he did come back, you've had to deal with a lackluster offensive line and an unaccomplished defensive, group. That takes the fun out of things. When he did come back, he was facing against a very tough schedule. So he wasn't able to ease his way in. He had to jump in, and he was thrown into the fire, asking to survive and carrying people on his back to survive with them, because 1 week he didn't have T. Higgins. 1 week he didn't have Jamar Chase. Well, 2 weeks he didn't have T. Higgins. So in hindsight, we're sitting here and I'm asking myself, what's fun watching Cincinnati football right now? I can't find nothing. We're not playing 500 football. We're not going to finish 500 off the year. And I don't know about you, but I really saw last Sunday's game against the Ravens as if the Bengals were just gutted. They had no energy. I wouldn't go as far as to say they were mentally checked out, but it almost felt like they were at their wit's end. And they were just kind of done. Look, what's the point? We're not having fun. Now, that's the only thing that I want to pinpoint with Joe Burrow. The captain of this team, the leader of this team. He will set the tone and the pace, not only to the offensive line, but to the entire team. So if he's coming in and he's having a bad day, everyone else is going to have a bad day around him. Okay? Now, given the Bengals defense only allowed 24 points, and they had one of their better days, I'd admit, but it's still the fact that we couldn't muster up a single scoring drive was very disappointing. So Joe Burrow was in press conference yesterday, and there were some specific questions that was asked of him. So I'm going to share those questions with you and his response. The first question: is there any world where you are not the Bengals QB next season? And Joe Burrow responds, I can't see that, no. So there's a little bit of positive news there. It seems to me that Joe Burrow is confident enough saying that I'm going to at least be back next season. So the Bengals, whatever you decide to do, you will have your quarterback next year. At least that is what it seems to be based off of his response. The second question is, has have you ever thought about being a quarterback in Cincinnati, or not being a quarterback? Have you ever thought about not being a quarterback in Cincinnati at some point down the road? And he said, you think about it a lot. You think about a lot of things, excuse me. That was his simple response. You think about a lot of things. So, from some sort of clarity and certainty and some positives coming out of the first question, we're kind of now red flagging, maybe yellow flagging at least, this next question, because wouldn't become a surprise that Joe Burrow has maybe pondered over the idea, well, what if I am playing for a different team at some point? Maybe a team that is going to win. Maybe a team that's going to give me a different opportunity. Maybe we continue playing this lackluster of a franchise team, whatever they want to put together, and I'm going to end up like Andy Dalton and Carlson Palmer, where after I'm washed up with the team and they're ready to move on to another quarterback, I'm going to be out there looking for a job. I may get a second string position. I may get a chance from in a different area, but it's going to definitely be behind my prime years. So I think there's a little red flag there. But who blames them? I mean, do you blame, based off of the progress that we've seen over the last 3 years, do you blame him to think one day that, look, there could be a chance? I can't say no, I can't say yes, but there could be a chance that if, depending how things go, he may find himself in a different uniform, playing for a different team. It is gut-wrenching to even have these type of conversations. A question also was asked, have you ever thought about not playing or maybe just retiring? His response was, I mean, you think about it a lot of different things in your life, just like everyone else does. You see the pattern here? There's no clear, direct responses to these questions. But we're kind of going back to what was stated last week. He's thinking. He's thinking about the options of retiring. Hey, I'm beat up. I'm banged. I'm not having fun. If I retire, I can, salvage my 30s and do something I love where I'm not going to be banged up every 5 days. He's thinking a lot. Well, what if different scenarios happen? Where do I see myself in 5 years if I'm still in the league? Am I going to be this washed up quarterback that once was a great talent? Now I'm a useless talent because I stuck with a team that didn't bother to improve in all aspects of the field. I mean, I don't necessarily think that I feel it like it's good for Joe Burrow to express himself. I want his honest opinion. And let's face it, it's not going to be the answers we want, but it's going to be the answers where we can respect it. We need to know. The fans need to know. Zach Taylor needs to know. Duke Tobin needs to know. Mike Brown needs to know. Everybody in the NFL needs to know what Joe Burrow is feeling, he's thinking, he believes in his direction. We need to know. The moment we get that out there is the moment we can have a sense of direction as a fan. We will understand the pain. We will sympathize with him with what he's going through because we see it black and white out there in the results that we are seeing this season. But then the ball goes back into the court of Zach Taylor, Duke Tobin, and Mike Brown. saying, look, this is your franchise quarterback. This is your star pupil. This is your prized possession. And this is how he feels about where he's at, not just mentally, emotionally, and physically. This is what he thinks about the Cincinnati Bengals. This is what he thinks about his career and where he could lead. And maybe he's not wanting right now to kind of be the one who, and I respect him for this. Maybe he doesn't want to be this one who shoots out and says everything on his mind and kind of shoot himself in the foot. I've seen too many quarterbacks that kind of gone to social media, say how they feel. You know, you see this in players all the time. They speak prematurely. They say how they feel, and sometimes how, and maybe the intent is they want to change. Maybe they're asking for a trade. Maybe they want something. They hope to say it saying, hey, recognize me or recognize the team, recognize what needs to happen. But a lot of times we've seen that backfire in players, and it's ruined careers. So I can respect that Joe Burrow is hesitant, and he's a very organized person who will think about and make sure what he says next is not anything that is going to tarnish his career, tarnish his ability to play, tarnish the Bengals organization. But at some point, I need a little bit more of a clear direction. And unfortunately, like I said, if that means he wants out, say it. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's make it clear. Let's kind of make it known for these, for these teams. And let's make, let's support the idea. We're not going to like the idea. I get that, but let's support the idea behind Joe Burrow. Maybe he wants to retire, and we got to respect that. We're going to be upset about it. I understand, but we have to respect how he feels. At the end of the day, he's leading everybody in this city when it comes down to Bengals football. And the last thing that he did say kind of reflected back around to everything that we just talked about. I think a lot in my life. I am fairly quiet, so I often don't say a lot, so people then like to fill in the gaps here and there. That's what we've done. Then he says, I think about what I say a lot and don't care what comes of it. Then don't hold back, Joe. I respect that idea. I respect that type of tenacity that you bring to the table. I think whether we as fans like it, whether ownership likes it, whether Zach Taylor likes it, you need to be verbal about how you feel. I feel like in order for the Bengals to be able to move on, whether it's in one direction that, this isn't working out, in the direction, well, we hear you, but we don't care. We need to put the ball back into the ownership's court. We need them, we need to give them something to make a clear decision of what direction are they leading this ball club through. And I encourage Joe Burrow, and whatever the future holds for him, make sure that you don't leave with any regrets or any tables unturned when the time comes. And I feel like, when you have the opportunity and the chance to sit here and to help this organization out, and sometimes they need to look in the mirror, and you're kind of pointing there. As the captain, you could do it. But if you wait too long, it's going to be too late. So, there are some red flags, some underlying statements that were said that we still have some concerns about. And, this is just what, who Joe Burrow is. But I think that the Bengals really need, as soon as the offseason hits, I don't know, we could sit here and talk about, oh, well, so-and-so needs to be fired. And I get that, but we don't make that decision at the end of the day. I feel like there's enough people at the gates outside Preivew Stadium saying, fire Zach Taylor now. that it would be dumbfounded for ownership not to take that into consideration and possibly even execute that order. But that's what I see. Okay. And if the Bengals want to support that idea, because it's not just, I don't feel like it's just fan base. I feel like it's players too. If that's the direction that they decide to go, then great. I feel like we're moving in that direction and we're going to go down those roads. But if the offseason says, look, personnel is great, maybe we'll change some things at the under Zach Taylor at the coordinator position or some coaching staff, then I could see players be I can see players and fans being upset, but it's something that we're just going to have to deal with. And, that's we don't own the Bengals. We can't make them make any decisions that they don't want to make. Well, the Bengals are playing this Sunday against the Miami Dolphins. Both teams are eliminated from the playoffs. I like to think of these three final games as games of integrity and possibly a built up into the next season. The Bengals have Joe Burrow starting as quarterback. I feel like the focus is to continue winning. I would like to win these last three games, yes. But at the same time, at the expense of everyone staying healthy. I don't want no more injuries. If something happens where we even feel off easy with Joe Burrow, I need him out. I want him healthy for next season. This is also a good time for teams who have been eliminated to take a look at some other personnels and in hopes to help make a decision of where they fit with the organization next season. And I talked about this yesterday about Tua Tagovailoa being benched. And I came out and I think that this is a decent deal, not for the help the Bengals win, but you're putting out Quinn Ewers. Okay. You have the backup quarterback, Zach Wilson, but you already know what Zach Wilson's done at the professional level. You already know what Tua Tagovailoa has done at the professional level. We know that over the next three games that the Dolphins are not going to go to the playoffs, even if they could win. Maybe they could play a little spoiler and preventing a team from, I don't know, maybe winning a division or advancing to the playoffs. But this game particularly, it looks like they're going to Quinn Ewers. Now, my impression is, like I said, we know what Tua does. We know what Zach does. Let's see what Quinn does. He's a rookie quarterback. And, for me, let's look at over the next three games, if possible, and let's see what he's capable of. Just like the Cleveland Browns putting Shedeur Sanders out there. I think the Browns need to figure out, well, based off of the results of, Dylan Gabriel with, Shedeur Sanders, do we need to go back into the draft and pick up another quarterback? Do we need to look into what our free agents look like in quarterback areas? We're not going to get a clear understanding until we can analyze these two professional players at the highest level. And so, regardless of a fail or not, it's one of those things where you just, for Browns, you're just going to have to sit on your hands, bite your teeth, and just take one for this year, saying, okay, the idea is to have something established so we have a better idea who we're going to go off to with next season. Well, Miami kind of released an article on, an article from CBS kind of released from Zachary Perellis about this situation or this announcement made by Mike McDaniel. And apparently Mike McDaniel says everything is on the table regarding benching Tua. Obviously, Miami's been eliminated from playoffs. Rookie quarterback Quinn, and we'll start with the Dolphins in Week 16 against the Bengals. And Zach Wilson will be the primary backup with Tagovailoa being the emergency third string background. McDaniel said on Wednesday, the decision is complicated but simple. The simple piece is I think Quinn gives this team the best chance to win. Our focus is obviously, to win the next 3 games. But in particular, like I told the players, we are focused on beating the Bengals. So what is the motivation? That's the motivation. He said that the decision wasn't easy. And it wasn't easy for Tagovailoa to hear it, but he exhibited that what makes him the captain and the leader of this team. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if Quinn Ewers is honestly the best quarterback to give the Dolphins a win. Now, if Quinn Ewers could go into Sunday and the Dolphins could beat the Bengals with Quinn Ewers, I mean, I'm ready to not talk about Bengals football the rest of the season. I mean, for me, that's a laughing stock. But I feel like what I've explained best fits this situation. Tagovailoa, who's 27, went 22 for 28, throwing for 253 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, and took 4 sacks against Miami's 25-15 loss against Pittsburgh on Monday night. But the box score doesn't reflect how poorly he played. Both touchdowns came after the game had already gotten well out of hand. Through 3 quarters, he recorded just 65 passing yards. Look, we talk about motivations, and, your team's not in the playoffs. You're struggling. Players are injured. You don't have guys like Tyreek Hill, and you just kind of, it's not a good year. Tua is kind of the conversation piece that, if you asked me a few years ago, I'm kind of so surprised he's in the league for health reasons, not because his ability to play. Miami, there was just no catching up, and I feel like this is one of those years where it's kind of like, all right, well, let's move on and let's get back to the offseason to work on a better year next season. But, what do you, I guess, yes, you expect Tua to be disappointed in the demotion. Obviously, he's not living up to the standards or the capabilities he has in the past. But I think he has to understand that at least this part of the year, he is going to give some of these other guys a chance to help this organization out. So, look, I think this is a great thing that Tua's doing. I hope he doesn't feel too bad. But, the concept is to give, the players on his team as a captain, give them a spotlight. And there's nothing that you're fighting for other than integrity or, and other than bragging rights, so to speak. So before we get started on our second part of this podcast, I want to talk a little bit about Enlighten Studios' 2026 projects. They begin with their new theater production called Grassroots. We'll invite you to come out and check the performance at the Artsville Theater in Cincinnati, Ohio on February 20th through the March 1st. Tickets are still available by visiting tickettailor.com. A link in the description will be provided below for you guys to get your tickets. I'm working on a QR code as well. Will pop up also. But we're looking to fill those seats and support Enlighten Studios in their projects upcoming down the road. All right. So week 16 has some pretty impressive matchups. It begins tonight with the Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks on Amazon. That kickoff is scheduled for 8:15. Both teams come in with a 11-3 record. The Rams currently have the lead as they beat the Seahawks a few weeks ago. They hold the lead possession in the NFC West. They have already clinched a playoff berth. A win can clearly give them the upper edge in a division championship, while the Seattle Seahawks can clinch. More than likely, I believe they could clinch tonight with a victory here over the Rams, and they will be battling for the NFC West. Very intriguing spotlights. So This next segment, I am going to post the article up because, like I said, it could be a bit confusing when we start talking about scenarios. Well, we'll kick things off with the Denver Broncos as they look to capture they clinched with the Rams a playoff spot last Sunday, but now they have a chance to clinch paths like the number one overall seed in the AFC, as well as a possible championship. So if the Broncos look to capture the number one seed in the AFC, they would have to win their game against the Jaguars. The Chargers will have to either lose or tie against the Cowboys. The Patriots would have to lose against Baltimore Sunday night, and the Buffalo Bills would have to lose or tie with the Cleveland Browns. Even if those four things don't go down, Denver can still clinch a division title for the first time since 2015, and that was a remarkable year because that was the year they went to the Super Bowl under Peyton Manning and they won. In order to clinch the division, the Broncos will have to win with a Chargers loss or tie, or the Broncos will have to tie with a Chargers loss. Now we go back in of who could clinch in the spot week 16. With a 10-4 record, we take a look at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are 10-4. They are a game behind the New England Patriots in the AFC East. The Bills have not been to the playoffs for the Bills have been to the playoffs for 6 straight years, and they can make it 7 with one following scenario happening. Buffalo win with an Indianapolis loss or tie. Buffalo win with a Houston loss or tie. A Buffalo tie with the Indianapolis loss, or a Buffalo tie against Houston lost. Either the Colts or the Texans will have a say whether the Bills get in this week. The Texans are hosting the Raiders on Sunday, while the Colts will be playing Monday night against the 49ers. The New England Patriots can clinch the AFC East this week, but they have to clinch a playoff berth for that to happen. All they have to do is beat the Ravens on Sunday night in order to clinch. It would either be a New England win or tie, or with Houston or Indianapolis, lose or tie. If the Patriots lose to the Ravens and the Texans beat the Raiders, New England will still be able to clinch a spot if the 49ers beat the Colts Monday night, and vice versa. The Jacksonville Jaguars, who have sole possession over the AFC South at the moment, they have a 10-4 record. Jaguars are traveling to Denver to face the Broncos this week. They could clinch a playoff spot for the second time over the past 7 years with a Jacksonville win and a Colts loss or tie, a Jacksonville win and a Texans loss or tie, Jacksonville's tie with an Indy loss, and a Jacksonville tie with an Indy and tie and a Houston loss. A tie is not problematical in this case. The Jags' best bet is to win the Broncos, combining with the Colts' loss over the 49ers. The Chargers, the team who has been spoken about, started off to a great start, mellowed out. Question about if they're going to be good enough to make the playoffs. Matter of fact, they were one of the teams that were, even bet against to drop out of the playoff race. They ended the Chiefs' playoff streak last week by beating them 16-13. They have a chance to clinch a playoff spot. Another team who can get in with a combined win and a Colts loss to San Francisco. So Chargers need a win with a Colts loss or tie. Chargers need a win with a Houston loss or tie. The Chargers need a tie with the Indian loss, or Chargers need a tie with a tie and a Houston loss. To even have a shot to clinch a spot, the Chargers will have to beat the Cowboys on the road this week. Now let's move over to the NFC. 5 teams who could clinch. Philadelphia Eagles, 9-5. It's been 21 years since the team won the NFC East back-to-back seasons, but that drought is looking like it's coming to an end. All the Eagles will need to do is to beat the Commanders on Saturday, and the Eagles can clinch the NFC title along with a playoff spot if any of these three scenarios happen. An Eagles win, a Dallas loss, a Philly tie, and a Dallas tie. If the Eagles win on Saturday, that would eliminate the Cowboys from the playoff contingents wholly. So just for a moment to understand this concept, because we'll probably talk about the Cowboys here in a moment. Do they have them listed? Okay. So they don't have them listed. So think about this for a moment. The Cowboys this Saturday is going to watch the Eagles game. And it's either they're going to have extra motivation if the Eagles lose playing the Chargers Sunday, or they're probably, they're going to run into the stadium with knowing the hopes. Either way, coming into Sunday's game with the Cowboys and Chargers, the Cowboys will have a clear idea of whether they're still in the playoff hunt and what they need to do to manage a win out of the Chargers, or they will be eliminated from the playoffs, which can change the entire concept in the way that they approach this game this Sunday. Hard to believe that's the case. Chicago Bears are 10-4. If the Bears can beat the Packers this Sunday, they will have a shot to clinch a spot this weekend. But they'll need some help with the better enemy, Aaron Rodgers. So here's that scenario. Chicago win, Detroit loss, or tie. Or Chicago tie and a Detroit loss. If the Bears to pull off a win against Green Bay, that means they will be rooting for the Aaron Rodgers on Sunday, since the Steelers will be facing the Lions. Yes, Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. What about a win for them? Sabotaging and getting the Bears into the postseason. Hey, but Aaron Rodgers is playing for a different team in a different conference in a different division. So let's root for the future Hall of Famer. The Green Bay Packers are 9-4-1. If the Packers beat the Bears on Saturday, which is going to be another impressive game, and probably one of the top games I have on my calendar, then they will be cheering for Aaron Rodgers to beat the Lions, since Pittsburgh win would send Green Bay to the playoffs. Green Bay will need a Detroit loss or a tie, or Green Bay tie with a Detroit loss. The only way the Bears and Packers can both clinch a spot this week is if they tie and the Lions lose. The 49ers are 10-4, which I think this is the most compelling and not aggressive, but the most interesting division. The Niners have quietly put together a strong season, but can they finish off and clinch a playoff win on Monday against the Colts? They could clinch a playoff spot if they win on Monday, or Detroit loses Sunday, or if San Francisco ties and Detroit ties. Of course, 49ers could clinch before Monday if the Lions lose to the Steelers. The Seattle Seahawks are 11-3. They have a showdown with the Rams in primetime action later tonight. If they win, they will be headed to the playoffs for just the second time over the past 5 seasons. Here are 2 scenarios that the Seattle Seahawks could get into the postseason this week. Seattle clearly wins their game against the Rams, which they will be at home in Lumen Field, home turf, or a Detroit loss or tie. There's a good chance that the NFC West could send 3 teams to the playoffs this year. If the Lions lose to the Steelers Sunday, the 49ers, Seahawks, and will both be in, as well as the Rams, who clinched last week. So let's take a look at who's in and who's out. The Rams have clinched. They are in. They currently hold the number 1 seed, followed by the Bears that are 10-4. They hold the NFC North leader. The Eagles are 9-5 as the East leader, and the Buccaneers are 7-7 in the South leader. The Seahawks are 11-3, following a 10-4 49ers and a 9-4-1 Packers. NFC spots clinched is the Rams team. NFC teams that so far have been eliminated are the Vikings, Falcons, Saints, Commanders, Cardinals, and Giants. Over in the AFC, the Broncos lead the AFC West in the number 1 seed with a 12-2 record. The Patriots follow with a 11-3. The Jaguars have a 10-4, and then the Steelers have a 7-6. The wild card belongs to the Chargers at 10-4, Bills at 10-4, and the Texans at 9-5. The only team who has officially clinched is the Broncos. The teams have been eliminated are the Chiefs, Dolphins, Bengals, Jets, Browns, Raiders, Titans. The only team that can be eliminated from the playoff contentions this week are the Cowboys. If the Eagles win Saturday, then the Cowboys is out. If the Eagles lose, then the Cowboys would also be knocked out if they lose against the Chargers on Sunday. That is your breakdown. I will have that posted for you coming up in the descriptions below. We take a look at week number 16 and where we stand here today. I was looking over the list and I picked out a few games that I'll be interested in paying attention to. Tonight is the first and foremost game as both teams enter in with 11-3 record, and it's the battle of the NFC West. In my opinion, the Rams and the Seahawks. Yes, it looks like both teams are going to be in the postseason this year, but the Seahawks can make things interesting and end up taking over the NFC West, and possibly winning a division. I anticipate the winner of this game tonight winning the NFC West division and having the higher seed in the NFC postseason. The other game I'll be watching, it will be this Saturday night as the Packers take on the Bears. And this is going to be a fun game. Both teams are banged up heading into this crucial game. But we just went over the scenarios. I'd be paying attention to this game. It will be available on Fox. Another game that we are paying attention to here will take over to Sunday. It wasn't a game that was mentioned, but you have the Buccaneers and the Panthers both sitting, with 7-7 records in the NFC South. And the Panthers have made a surprising run as Tampa is still proclaiming that they're still in the hunt with the big dogs. Well, the record does not showcase any of that, and the Panthers have a chance to quiet Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers with the victory. We take a look at Sunday night football game with the New England Patriots and the Baltimore Ravens. We obviously know what needs to happen between the Steelers and the Lions. But you look at the AFC North, we want if the Steelers win, they will still remain at least a head game above the Ravens, and which will also mean that the Steelers would have to at least one of the final 2 games of their season with either against the Browns or the Ravens in order to clinch the AFC North. The Ravens, on the other hand, a lose and a Steelers win would just put them in danger. So the Ravens are trying to stay desperately alive. And the only chances right now look towards what the Steelers do. Now, the Steelers face the Lions, and the Lions is a tough team to face. It's in Ford Field. While the Ravens, yes, the Patriots are a struggle team, but they are having are a team to look out for, but they have home field advantage. So that AFC North battle, if you guys are interested in looking at those 2 games, that's something to keep on. The Steelers and Lions game is on CBS, and the Sunday night games on NBC. Obviously, we have the Bengals and the Dolphins. I would like to assume that with Quinn Ewers starting for the Dolphins, we will see a Bengals victory. I'm skeptic, right? I can't really put my finger on that as well. Other notable games to pay attention to, I mentioned the Steelers and Lions, Jaguars and Broncos, and then the 49ers and the Colts, which is a Monday night game. So it's all becoming more clear as the season starts winding down. A lot of information there. Definitely went over time frame, but that is all the time I have for you guys today. Man, we made it through a whole hour of podcasting. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I appreciate everyone's support, whether you guys are listening to us on our audio platforms or watching us on our social media accounts. Please be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button for more content and have those notifications on so you don't miss a single episode. We'll wrap it up tomorrow, get you guys ready for the weekend as our holiday season's about to begin. Thank you guys for tuning in and take care. Have a good day.